Okay, so in today's video, we are pitting the iPhone 14 Pro against the Google Pixel 7 Pro. Let's go ahead and jump in. All right, first things first, price. The Apple iPhone 14 Pro will run you $999 for the base model, meaning the 128 gigs of internal storage, whereas the Google Pixel 7 Pro here will run you $899 for the base model, and that will be also with 128 gigs of internal storage. Now, next here, let's go ahead and talk design, and I want you to keep in mind that this is going to be all very subjective. From the look, they look very premium and they feel very premium. I couldn't tell you that one is more premium than the other. Now, the display on the iPhone 14 Pro here is completely flat, whereas on the Google Pixel 7 Pro here, it's slightly curved and also slightly flat, I guess to please both people who prefer flat displays and also people who prefer curved displays. Next here, from the get-go, we can notice the size, right? With the Pixel 7 Pro here, you have a 6.7 inches display there. This is a pretty tall phone. It's a pretty big phone. Whereas on the 14 Pro here, you have a 6.1 inches display. Some additional features that they both share would be, the power button, volume rocker, and the fact that, the internal storage is non-expandable. The Google Pixel 7 Pro here is one of a few Android devices out there where you cannot expand the internal storage. Now, a few differences to note here would be starting off just with the ports. On the Pixel 7 Pro here, you have a USB Type-C port, whereas on the iPhone 14 Pro, what you have is a Lightning port. The camera modules, of course, as you can see, are very different. On the Pixel 7 Pro there, what you have is a horizontal bar there. Some people call it the visor. I simply call it a camera bar or camera module. And on the 14 Pro here, what you have is a squarish, thicker camera module. On the 7 Pro here, what you have is a 50 megapixel wide, then you have a 48 megapixel telephoto that pushes up to 5 times optical zoom, and finally you have a 12 megapixel ultra wide. Whereas on the iPhone 14 Pro here, what you have is a 48 megapixel wide that can push up to 3 times zoom, then you have a 12 megapixel ultra wide and a 12 megapixel telephoto. Then on the front, what you have here is a 12 megapixel selfie camera, whereas on the 7 Pro here, what you have is a 10.8 megapixel camera, and these cameras on here are fantastic. They shoot very, very well. Now, one thing to highlight here is the fact that the 7 Pro here is a major upgrade in terms of videos, right? So when you compare this to the 6 Pro, in my testing, I still feel like the iPhone 14 Pro here has a slightly better video quality when compared to what we saw with the Google Pixel 6 Pro. On the iPhone 14 Pro, you have a slightly better video, but in terms of still pictures, just regular pictures, the Pixel 7 Pro here just destroys the iPhone 14 Pro when it comes down to pictures. This is subjective, right? Some people prefer, pictures that are a lot more saturated. Now, even though there are professional photographers out there that praise the wonders that the Pixel 7 Pro's camera here can do in terms, again, of still photographs, there still are people who would prefer, pictures coming out of the iPhone 14 Pro. In my humble take, regular pictures are much better on the Pixel 7 Pro here versus the iPhone 14 Pro, but videos are better on the iPhone 14 Pro. Now, on top of that, you have a ton of features on the Pixel 7 Pro here. So I could actually see a professional photographer using this, to take amazing pictures. Not necessarily that you want to replace your professional cameras with this guy here, but I can see some photographers really make fantastic use of the camera from the Pixel 7 Pro here. Bottom line here is that if you are looking for the best in terms of taking pictures, I would say go for the Pixel 7 Pro. But if you are looking for the best in terms of taking videos, I would say go for the iPhone 14 Pro. Now let's go ahead and talk display here, and I want to go ahead and start off with the iPhone 14 Pro here. What you have here, like I said, is a 6.1 inches display, and the resolution here is 1179 by 2556. So as you would imagine, it is pretty dense here. We are looking at a 460 ppi density. It also does support 120 hertz refresh rate here, and peak brightness can push up to 2000 nits. That is extremely bright. So if you are outside under direct sunlight, no issues whatsoever. It is extremely bright. Plus, another thing that Apple finally added to the Pro lineup here would be the always on display. Like you can see here, you do have the ability to turn that off or to keep it on. The Google Pixel 7 Pro also is equipped with always on, as you would imagine. Of course, the peak brightness here would be 1500 nits. The resolution here is actually 1440 by 3120, and this is on that 6.7 inches display, like I said, and the PPI density here is 512. Both are OLED displays, but like I said, this one is extremely sharp. Although, to be fair, when you get to PPI density that is this high, it's very hard to be able to tell the difference, especially on displays that are relatively small, right? When you're looking at the iPhone 14 Pro's display here, beautiful display. Same here where you're looking at the Pixel 7 Pro display here, absolutely gorgeous display. And like I said, with the 7 Pro here, you're looking at 1500 nits. That is also very, very high. So under direct sunlight, you would have no issues reading or navigating the internet, whatever the case may be, on either one of these phones. But still, it is important to note that what you have here is a Quad HD Plus display. They're both IP68 rated, right? So in terms of dust and water resistance, you definitely have that with either one of these two here. One thing that was new with the iPhone 14 Pro this year is that we no longer are able to use a physical SIM card with this phone in the US, right? Whereas on the 7 Pro here, you do have that option. If you want to use an eSIM like you would with the iPhone 14 Pro, you can do that. But you also do have the ability to just use your physical SIM card and pop the SIM tray open and put that in there, and you'll be good to go. So it does support both the physical SIM card and also eSIM. Now, some additional features here would be biometrics. On the Google Pixel 7 Pro here, what you have is an optical fingerprint sensor that is actually pretty quick. It unlocks your phone really fast. On top of that, you also do have the face unlock feature that was added to this model that also does work pretty well. On the iPhone 14 Pro, you don't have a physical fingerprint sensor, but you do have Face ID here, which is definitely more secure than what you have with the face unlock on the 7 Pro here. Now, next here, let's go ahead and talk about the platform. Let's start off with the iPhone 14 Pro here. You have 128 gigs of internal storage, like I mentioned earlier, non-expandable. You also get 6 gigs of RAM on here, right? Whereas on the 7 Pro here, you have also 128 gigs, non-expandable, just like on the iPhone here. But you get 12 gigs of RAM here, so double the amount of RAM that you get on the iPhone here. But now that doesn't tell the whole story, right? So you have that 6 gigs of RAM coupled with the all-new A16 Bionic chip that is loaded on the iPhone 14 Pro here, which is an extremely powerful chipset. So any heavy task is going to just plow through it like there is no tomorrow. An absolute monster when it comes down to just raw power. Whereas on the 7 Pro here, what you have, of course, would be the new Tensor G2 chipset here, which also is powerful, but not as powerful as what you have with the A16 Bionic chip. You are able to multitask better on this phone compared to what you can do on this phone. Not everyone, but a lot of people find themselves doing a lot of things on their phone. Plus, on here you have a larger display, so you could definitely do a bit more than just 1 or 2 things, right? Whereas the multitasking ability here is fairly limited. Sure, you have the dynamic island, and because it's supposed to be kind of a dynamic notch that, you know, is somewhat interactive, it might lead you to think that the, you know, user experience is going to be drastically different. It's going to be slightly different compared to your typical previous generation of iPhone, but otherwise the user experience will be what we've seen with, you know, all of the other iPhones. The user experience on Pixels generally would be kind of the user experience that you get on the iPhone, except it would be on the Android side, right? So when it comes down to just fluidity and things being extremely smooth, animation being top notch, yeah, user experience here is top notch. So in terms of user experience, I'm going to say you're going to enjoy using either one of them. Now let's go ahead and talk battery this time around. What you have here on the Google Pixel 7 Pro is a 5,000 milliamp battery. That is a large battery, and I'm getting pretty close to 7 hours SOT here. Whereas here we have a 3,200 milliamp battery, so a fairly small battery compared to that 5,000. I'm getting more battery life out of the 14 Pro versus the 7 Pro. I'm not sure why that is, but that's just based off of my usage. So we're not going to dive too deep into the details of the batteries because it's simply going to depend on how you use your phone. Finally, the last thing that I want to highlight here before we close will be support. On the iPhone 14 Pro, you are guaranteed for this phone to be supported for the next 5 years, right? on the Google Pixel 7 Pro, you are guaranteed 5 years of security updates, but only 3 years of major updates. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So I'm going to stop the video here. You have to keep in mind that this was not meant to be a full review of one versus a full review of the other. I've already made review videos. With that being said, here's my take. If you are in the market for a flagship that's going to offer you value, obviously the 7 Pro would be the one to go for because it's cheaper, and it's cheaper when compared to the iPhone 14 Pro, and it offers a lot more features, customization, a lot more things. Now the iPhone 14 Pro, or just iPhones in general, are known for just that stability, right? What you are guaranteed here is just a very steady platform. Plus, if you are already in the ecosystem, this would be the one to go for, right? So you get that raw power, plus it will play well with your other Apple devices. Now, if you're also looking for something that is just versatile and that offers, some level of flexibility in terms of what you can do with customization or some level of multitasking, then of course the 7 Pro. Now, if you're looking for something that shoots great videos, I would say go for the iPhone 14 Pro. If you're looking for something that is top notch when it comes to just pictures, I would say go for the 7 Pro. Now, let me know what any additional questions you may have in the comment section. Let's get that conversation going. I'm going to catch you in the comment section. Make sure to share the video also. Like the video and subscribe if you haven't done so already to the channel. I will also catch you in the next video. Up until that next video, of course, as always, stay safe out there.